Hi YouTube, this is Joe Kelton with Kelton Cutlery, and find me on the web. Always have to adjust that. KeltonCutlery.com. Alright, so we're continuing our making a new knife pattern, the series, right? And I think this is video like 21 or something, right? But I promise you we're getting close, okay? Now, we left off with hand sanding the handle, okay? So with this style of handle and this construction method here, where you fit up your scales and you're using pins and not like Corby bolts or any other kind of rivets or anything like that. You know, I learned this method from Murray Carter in his book, I think it's Making Knives with Murray Carter or something like that, right? Where you fit up your scales and then you epoxy your scales with 5-minute epoxy. And then you use your pins pretty much to locate everything. Then before the epoxy cures all the way, or if you screw it up and it does cure all the way and you forget to pull your pins, then you just use, you know, a Bic lighter, you know, to heat the pins up, break your epoxy bond, pull them out, grind the handle, hand sand the handle, get the handle very close to being done, okay, pretty much everything except for the sides where the heads of the pins are going to be. Then you go ahead and you install your pins. Right now, remember, we've got an epoxy, well, this has been the scales have been epoxied on, right? And if you remember right, you know, all these, you know, you've got two holes. Well, that's a fillet knife here. So we got a paring knife here, and it's got, you know, the 1/8" holes or the number 30 holes for your pins, and then these holes right here are for what I call epoxy rivets, which we got to see those, I want to say, in the last video, where I had a handle that that didn't work out right, so I ended up showing you how to take those handles off, and then you got to see the epoxy rivets, you know, in person, right? So anyway, so right now, this handle has got great strength, or shear strength, going this way and this way, but it has no strength at all in a lateral type application, right? Okay, so we need to fix that. We need to get some pins in this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two different methods of pinning these handles on. The way that I used to do it, and then the way that I do it now. And I bet you're going to like the way I do it now quite a bit better. But let's go ahead and get her done. So we got the two knives, right? The two that are left. This one is going to be my tester for the next, you know, 2 days or till I get bored with it or whatever, but I am going to run this one through the washing machine to see what happens with that that stabilized cottonwood burl, and I'm really excited about that test. Probably more excited about that test than I am about, you know, the rest of the knife. I mean, I'm pretty excited about that. And in this one right here, I think I might have somebody in mind for this one. I haven't really decided yet. So we'll do the nice way of putting the pins in on this one, and we'll put the old way on this one. I mean, the old way is still okay, but it's not as nice or as repeatable as the new way. We got to get around Doc. Tennis ball. I bet you he's chasing that ball 8.5 hours of it, and the rest of it he's sleeping. Okay, so remember, we're using 1/8" pins. So we've got a number 30 drill bit chucked up in the press. And, you know, these holes have already been drilled with that number 30 because we had the pins through here, right? But now they've got a whole bunch of crap in there, you know, epoxy and wood dust, you know, all that kind of stuff. So we need to clean those pins out with this number 30 drill. Now this is an application you don't need to clamp up. I mean, I guess you could if you wanted to, but the you know, the handle's round, or at least not flat. So it's not like you're going to be able to set it down and be able to drill through it. I suppose if you wanted to, you could put like a wood block or something here and kind of rest it, and as long as it kind of floated on top of that wood block, you'd be all right. But honestly, I hand hold them, make sure that the spine of the blade, even though it's taped up, the spine of the blade is into the meat of your hand. Okay, that way, just in case it gets away from you, it'll be the spine that's trying to rip your flesh and not the edge. Remember, these are not sharp yet, but they're still, I want to say they're ground down to, I don't know, 5/1000ths of an inch thick or so, so they will cut you if you put enough pressure. Now, on the other hand, this is a pretty small, pretty light duty drill press, okay? It's got like a, oh, it says right there, 1/3 horse motor, okay? And we're on a small drill bit. The likelihood of it getting away from you is slim, but always, you know, act like just in case. That way, if it does happen, you're usually a little bit safer. And we're at, I don't know, second to highest speed on this drill press. That part doesn't really matter, I don't think. Okay, see how much cleaner those holes look? All right, now let's go to the other one while we're here. Uh-oh, we got the Labrador doorbell. Sure who that was, but it's somebody delivering a package. So hang on, let me double check them. Boys. Yep, that's what that is. Okay, so let's see, where were we? Aha, the slow way. Okay, we're going to do that with this one. All right, now we need to, you know, it's been so long since I did this particular way of doing it. I had a cutter. I had a cutter that I actually had epoxied into a little handle just for this operation that I used to use. And I don't see it, but that ought to work. You know, that cutter, it's a Dremel tool. It's a cone that's got flutes on it. I'm sure, well, it looks, I can't grab it. It looks kind of like that, only it's ground to a point, but it still has the flutes on it. Okay, so what you do is you use that to kind of put a chamfer on the top edge of these holes. Okay, not too much, but you got to have some there, and that's going to be a lip that you upset the pin into, and that's what locks the pin in place and gives you strength. Okay, you should be able to see now that is cut. Actually, I went kind of deep on these, but that's probably cut about 40/1000ths of an inch deep. All right, which is actually a fairly deep chamfer, but we're going to roll with it anyway. Okay, so now when I'm doing these, what I like to do is take my pin stock, flopping around. It's a 3-foot stick of it, and I clamp the end of it in the vise. Okay, then I just grab a set of the miniature bolt cutters. Okay, put the pin through. You're going to need to be right in front of me. There. Put the pin through. Leave some of it projecting on this side, a little bit more than the width of the pin stock, okay, and cut it off. I used to cut all these with a saw, and that takes a whole bunch of time. Okay, so we got 2 pins that are installed and kind of cut out, right? Okay, so now what we got to do is we got to dress the heads of those pins. But I threw it away prematurely, and I don't have another worn out 220 grit belt. So pretty much what we need to do is we need to flatten the heads, or flatten the ends of these pins, okay, and then dress them down to where they're a little bit less than the diameter of the pin is sticking out on each side. All right. Okay, so about like that. Okay, now since we're going to be peening these over, we want to round off. We don't want this sharp corner, okay, because then when we go to peen it, it'll create like a sliver, okay, and then that sliver can come off. We don't want that, so we want this rounded off. So we're going to round them off. I think I was below the camera on that. So what you do is you just grab the pin and then you just kind of roll it in your fingers while the belt is running, and it'll just give you that little chamfer there. All right, so we put that back in. Now we're ready for peening. Okay, so now for peening. And keep a fairly cleaned up face on the ball peen end of your hammer. Okay, so now there's two strikes that we're going to do here with the hammer. Are you in the? Yeah, okay. All right, our first strike, well, actually maybe 3. Okay, our first strike is going to be flat. Okay, and that is going to be straight on at a fairly. I'm going to drop the pin.
Watch out, Claire.
What did I do with it?
Where'd it go?
Oh, Claire, come on, help me find the pin. Ah, there it is. Dang things, they like to fall out. All right, so our first strike is going to be fairly stiff, okay? Honestly, guys, I don't know how to describe the hit any more than that, but it's going to be, I don't want to hit my anvil either. Well, you'll hear it. Now, here's a chunk of 2x4. You never want to hit, a hammer right on the face of the anvil. It can kind of jack your anvil or the hammer up. All right, so the first hit's going to be, okay, and what that does is it swells up the pin deep down inside the hole and kind of locks it in place. Okay, once we get that done, then we swap over to the ball peen side and we start peening the head of mushrooming the head of the pin out. Okay, so what you do here is if you set the knife flat on the anvil, you have all your pins sticking up. Okay, so set it down flat, raise it up a little bit, and then kind of hold it. You're pinching part of the flesh on your finger to kind of hold it in place. Or you can grab in fact, let's do that. Hang on, let me grab some sticky notes. Sticky notes work good for this because you can vary the depth. Okay, so you can put them stickum notes right up underneath your handle, and then you know that no matter what you do, that handle can't get closer to the anvil than that. Okay, so then, okay, seat that pin in place. Now, you know if you did it right if you go to push that pin and it don't go nowhere. Okay, that means that pin is seated down inside the hole now. And we'll go ahead and do that on the front pin. Okay. Oh, it just barely moved out. Okay, so that'll be just fine. That means it's nice and tight inside that hole. Okay, now we get our stickum notes out of the way. Now what we need to do is we need to fill up that gap inside that chamfered hole that we made. Okay, so what you do there is lighter hits, basically hammer weight. Okay, what you're doing there, just as an example, so let's say that hammer there is the end of your pin. Okay, what you're doing is you're hitting around the outside edge of that pin. Okay, and brass is fairly soft, so it mushrooms it out. Okay, once we get it all mushroomed out and filled in, then I like to give it a couple of light love taps on either side, right in the middle, just to kind of squash it down even more. And you can peen a little bit on one side and then peen a little on the other side. In fact, that's probably a good idea. Okay, so it looks fairly even. No, maybe not quite on this side. Okay, it looks fairly even on both sides on all four, both sides of both pins. So now I like to take and just, kind of smooth them out a little bit with the flat face. Okay. So now we have very secure, securely peened pin heads. All right. Now let's go grind off the pin heads. Boy, that's way more than a fresh one, okay? Because now what we need to do is we need to clean off we need to bring the head of that pin flush to the rest of the handle material, all right? But we don't, not a totally worn out belt, because we don't want to put any more heat into that than we have to, because you overheat these pins and they will burn the handle material around them, okay? So then what you'll have is you'll have a nicely upset pin, but then you'll have a burn mark around the hole. And no matter how much sanding you do, you're never going to get rid of that burn mark, okay? So since this is a fairly light or a fairly fresh belt, lightly or easy does it. And just try to grind the face off. Okay, so we got it done. Now let's go. Which our next step is our grinding marks. Okay, so we put it back in here, and we take our 220 grit sanding stick, and and we kind of clean up the sharp edges of what we just made. Now really, really light here, okay? Especially with burl, okay? Because burl is so much softer than even brass pin stock, okay? That if you go very aggressive or if you sand a lot, you'll what they call undercut your handle material, okay? So your handle material will be lower than the pin stock. Okay, when that happens, you grab a smooth cut file and you file the top of that that pin again, and then you stay a little bit easier when you sand it. Okay, that's where these flat sanding sticks come in handy, because as long as you stay pretty much on that pin, that flat sanding stick will generally make the undercutting less of a problem. Again, we want our strokes going this way. And that's about it. We'll go ahead and shine it up. Okay, those pin heads do not feel proud at all. Maybe very slightly on this one, like, I don't know, maybe a half a thou or so. Do the same thing on this side. Actually, well, yeah, we'll just go really light on the 220. Okay. All right, now, so we have got a really nice looking peened handle there. Now let's get you out of the light. And now I'll show you. Okay, if you look, that pin is not round anymore. It's very oblong. And this one is fairly round. This one is oblong. That one doesn't look too bad, all right? Now, original pin stock, now this might be kind of tough to see in the camera because you got brass on brass with a light colored wood, okay? But you can tell that that pin is a larger diameter than the pin stock, right? Okay, so you know it's not going to be going anywhere. So this is a very serviceable way to peen pins on a knife handle, right? Okay, but you can see it takes a long time. When you go to peening with the ball peen, you know, especially if you're working on material that likes to crack a lot more than, say, burl, like desert ironwood or oak, or like bog oak, you know, stuff like that. Stuff that is a lot harder and it doesn't have as much give. You know, it's a lot more of a risky way to peen pins, okay? Especially compared to this way that I'm going to show you now. That way you just needed a number 30 drill bit and your 1/8 inch pin stock. This way we add a tool to it, but we save a whole bunch of time. And that is, this is from, I think I got this from MSC. But that'll be your part number there. Okay, and that right there is your description, which it's a tapered pin reamer. I can't remember what the SP, FL, HS is probably high speed steel, and it's a size 2-0. All right, made by Toolmex, toolmex.com, I believe. Okay, I can't remember how much it cost, but honestly, I mean, for making these, as many of them as I make, you know, even if the thing was $30, I'd pay for it because it just saves that much time. And you can see that it's a tapered, fluted pin reamer. All right. So, well, I guess I can show you here. I think these things said that they were a range. You know, like maybe 30 seconds to. No, it wouldn't be 330 seconds because the tip of the pin is at 110 thousandths. And the base of the reamer, the tip of the reamer was at 110 thousandths. The base of the reamer is coming in at 142 thousandths. Okay, so what this will do is this will put a couple of thousandths taper on those holes. All right. Take your handle, insert your pin reamer. Okay. You know, I guess I'm probably putting, I don't know, maybe a half a pound of force on that. You can tell that, see, before I start cutting, it's sticking that far out. And now it's sticking that far out. Now I guess you probably whole motion I'm doing my wrist there. Okay, so see, that's the side I already did. That's the side that I haven't done yet. So I'm going just back and forth a couple of times, flipping the knife, going back and forth a couple of times. Okay, that kind of keeps it, you know, cutting kind of uniformly. Now, easy does it on that tapping, because remember, we have no lateral strength until we get those pins in. All right, so now you don't have that that sharp chamfer like what you would do with this. Okay, but it's tapered all the way down that hole. All right, so the middle of that hole is still probably at that, you know, which is 128 thousandths. But, well, actually, we got micrometers out here right now. Let's check. Okay, we're at 0. Let's put just the okay, the top of that hole now is at 128, which that doesn't really make sense because, oh, there it is. 135, oh, 138, 143. It's kind of a tough spot to measure. But it's a much more gradual taper all the way down to the center of the tang instead of a wider taper out towards the back of the handle. Okay. Now we go ahead and pull this in. Okay, so we got our pins in place just like the last one. All right, and the pins, you can see, you know, they've got quite a bit of wiggle to them, right? Okay, now this is the part that you're going to think is cool, right? Method. We had to really pay attention about, you know, the length of our pins sticking out on either end. We had to pay attention to what kind of condition the ends of the pins were in, all that kind of stuff, right? This, no, we don't have to, okay? We can keep our pins longer, all right? So again, we're using, we're pinching some of the flesh of my finger there to make sure that the handle doesn't go all the way down, okay? We want to leave it up a little bit. And then I actually had that pin a little bit too long. I guess I can show you how to fix that. See how that's kind of bent over there? And actually that's bent over a lot. We might not save it. What we're trying to do is close that gap up there, and that's not going to happen. So I cut it a little bit too long, or I was a little bit off on my strike. Yeah, I screwed up both of those. Okay, hang on. Let me get you another one. Of course, on film, I'm trying to show you the easier way to do it. This is a paring knife. It's been set up the same way, but the pins are a little bit shorter. Now you see that? I was off a little bit. I had too much sticking out on this side and not enough on this side, so I just gently tapped the handle down. Okay, so now we just tap those all in place. I can see that all the way around here that they've been filled in. Now we go back to the 220 grit belt. Just like the other one. Pretty sure it's going to need, going to have to rip that handle off now. Okay, so now you can see that these pins are perfectly round. That one's got a little bit of an outer roundness, but not near like the other ones. And they're still peened out pretty well. I mean, they're at... you know, that one right there is at 157 thousandths. You know, so they've got a considerable amount of peen in there. And that peen, like I said, is a much longer, deeper peen like this instead of right here, right at the surface. So, actually, let's just see what that's going to look like. It's going to look here normally is a way faster and easier way to peen pins with a much more consistent results when the guy behind the hammer doesn't screw it all up. So anyway, so that's that tapered pin reamer, and it works amazing. I really like it. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and I guess now I need to decide what I'm going to do with that knife. I think I might, well, it's either rip her handle off and replace it, or use it as another tester myself, or let somebody else test it. It's going to be a tough choice, but I'll figure out what to do with it. Then I'm going to go ahead and peen these handles, clean them all up, and then our next job, now that we have the handle completed, our next job is going to be taking our tape off, okay, grinding off the spine, rounding it off, smoothing it over, okay, coming back in, doing our rough sharpening, okay, not our final sharpening, just a rough sharpening, all right. We want to see what that edge is going to look like. and getting it ready to make the sheath for it. Okay, and then we'll make the sheath for it. Then we'll come back, and once we have a safe home for it, we'll come back, put its final edge on, and then pretty much we're done with the thing. Okay, so again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. I hope you enjoyed the peening video, the two different methods. I guess this one right here, I guess I left the peens too long, or you know, I think this is like the third knife I've peened in quite a while, so maybe I was a little bit rusty. We're not sure. Anyway, again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time. So I was going back through, and I was going, you know, I was peening these other handles, and heck, I screwed another one up. And I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, what on earth is going on here? How come the last time I used this technique, it worked beautifully, and it was in the old shop, and I want to say it's pretty new, like maybe 100 knives ago, something like that. And finally, I got to looking at it, and the other one, it had done the same thing. It had, you know, the pin went crooked, and then I couldn't end up straightening it out. And what it was I did end up grinding the heads of the pins, but the length wasn't critical like it was with the first method. But you do have to grind or file a flat on the end of each pin. And that way, when you set it on the anvil, that pin sits pretty much straight up and down. Okay, so this is no change on that method. You know, then only I cut the pins off, and then I ground the heads of the pins flat. So let's go try that out. Okay, so see now, that pin, it won't have a tendency to get pushed off to one side or another because the bottom of it is flat. So instead of it wanting to kind of go like this, it's sitting on a flat surface that's pretty much up and down. Aha, beautiful. Now this is micarta. So with micarta, you can really hammer them pins in. And you know, micarta, I mean, you can split it, but you got to really work at it. So let's go ahead and grind those off. Okay, so now you can see, I'm not going to make you watch me hand sand the last little bit of it, but you can see how those are all nice and, I actually need to grind that one a little bit more, but they're all nice and very round. You know, I mean, you're always going to get some distortion when you peen pins, but these are way more rounder than going the other way, which is, what was it, this one? See the difference? So yeah, sorry I had forgotten that you do have to grind the heads of the pins flat, but you don't have to be near as critical on the length, and you don't have to you know, round off the heads of the pins in this method, whereas you do the first time. Okay, so yeah, that's how you're supposed to do it, not how I did it before. And also, it helps if you don't drop the knife when you're grinding it. It works way more better that way. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video and the PS to the video, and we will see you next time.